Marvel is dying, and they are dying fast. But the reason is not the unbelievable amount of money they lost from flawed movies and TV shows, but a massive internal mismanagement caused by corporate greed involving the VFX artists. And the time that can be tolerated has passed this threshold. But luckily, there is still a small green light to find a solution. But to do that, we need to take a look at the past. On February 11, 2013, the VFX studio Rhythm & Hues filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This came as a major surprise for everyone, not only because they worked on massive movies like Hunger Games, Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, but just 3 months before the shutdown, the movie that they have worked on, Life of Pi, was released, which was not just a financial hit but ended up winning the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. But the day of the Oscars was even more controversial. Nearly 500 professional VFX artists came to the streets outside the ceremony to protest, as more than 250 people lost their jobs because of the bankruptcy. Just to visualize the number, it's a sum of people that is enough to fill a half of a medium-sized IMAX theater. Bill Westenhofer, the VFX supervisor of Life of Pi, was accepting the Oscar, and he tried to raise awareness for this crisis that was happening. But suspiciously, he was drowned out by the music, and just in 45 seconds, his mic got cut off.
Finally, I want to thank all the artists who worked on this film for over a year, including Rhythm & Hues. Sadly, Rhythm & Hues is suffering severe financial difficulties right now. I urge you all to remember.
For context, the winner of the Best Cinematography Award, who happens to be working on the same movie, got to speak 60 seconds with no distractions or music. This behavior from the Academy backfired quickly. A ton of accusations started Twitter, and people inside and outside the entertainment industry came in support of the VFX artists, and they made a movement by changing their Facebook and Twitter profiles to green to show how films would look like without VFX. The Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn was one of the high-profile people to do that. There were three main reasons what caused the visual effects industry to be this unhealthy, and by an extent started all of this controversy. The VFX artists were underpaid, overworked with no overtime, and understaffed. But this is always a decade-old news. So as anyone could assume, almost all the main studios and studio executives paid their attention to the workers and decided to adjust their rates, time, and working environments to be much more healthy, so not only their quality would improve, but so would their reputation as an industry. Except, that never happened. Marvel Studios is the biggest player in the VFX movie business, and almost all the projects they make is a guaranteed success. I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home made $1.8 billion in the middle of the pandemic. But this made the lives of the VFX artists who had to work on these movies and TV shows tougher than ever. Working for Marvel is not the same as working for any other studio. It can either make you or break you. It's a fact that Hollywood relies heavily on VFX, even for scenes that you'd never think need CG in the first place. But if we do the same work for a Marvel movie, it will have a huge impact on your career. A retired VFX supervisor says, you might do spectacular work on something like The Irishman, but the exact same kind of work the aging Samuel L. Jackson on Captain Marvel gets you more attention. Because it's Marvel. The studio is well aware of the power they have, and that's why they are absolutely shameless when asking for impossible things in very short periods of time. Starting from the first Iron Man movie, MCU content kept growing in a very consistent rate over the past decade. But in 2021, things got crazy. In that year alone, they made 36 hours of MCU movies and TV shows. That's 5 years worth of content made in a single year. Despite the fact that most of them are Disney Plus shows, the amount of work they need is monumental. But look what Marvel is doing. Not only they pay 20% less salaries than other studios, they cut down the staff by 80% and give each artist 4 times as much workload. That's why it's very common to see a lot of VFX artists having to work over 6 months, every day, 80 hours 7-day weeks. This becomes even more of a problem when several movies are in production at the same time. Most recently, Black Panther Wakanda Forever and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania were in post-production simultaneously, and according to a source, there was a competition for the most highly skilled VFX workers between the two films. It's needless to say that this is not sustainable, and we can definitely see the cracks in the craft. The Marvel Disney Plus show Secret Invasion was supposed to be adapting one of the biggest crossover events from the comics. It had the writer of Mr. Robot on board, on top of a budget of $212 million. Yet the fans hated it and became the lowest rated MCU project ever made. This is quite possibly the lowest point for Marvel, and ironically enough, this is when things start to tremble in Hollywood.
Hollywood actors have joined screenwriters in the first dual strike by the two unions in more than 6 decades.
For the first time in over 60 years, actors and writers have joined forces. to demand better contracts.
On May 2nd this year, more than 11,000 members of the Writers Guild of America, WGA, went on strike, and 2 months later, SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents actors, followed suit, causing films and TV projects to halt or stop production altogether. Their demands are simple and honestly fair. The main ask is to increase the wages, because except for the top 5%, most actors and writers live paycheck to paycheck. As of the recording of this video, the problem is still in negotiations with the studios and hasn't been solved yet. But like a chain reaction, this clash ended up influencing the VFX artists to take actions against the mistreatment that they have dealt with. There are around 19 labor unions in Hollywood representing different professions. But since the birth of modern VFX in the 70s for the first Star Wars movie, there wasn't a single union that looked after VFX artists and their rights. That's why they can't push demands or go on strike without risking their jobs. They don't have that power. That's why this rumor that came a few weeks ago is really interesting. Over 50 on-set VFX workers employed directly through Marvel Studios have ordered to be unionized before the end of September. They have filed for election with the National Labor Relations Board to be represented by the union IATSC. This news was later confirmed by the IATSC themselves. It's an organization that represents over 168,000 technical artists across stage, TV, and film. If this was completed, Marvel will be required to give the VFX artists better pay, better turnaround times, and healthcare. It will also give them access to a pension fund. As several VFX workers at Marvel puts it, the move is not just something that has been a long time coming. It's necessary to even make it possible to continue doing this work. It's important to notice that these artists are not the ones who make the final finish of the movie with completed CG, but they're the ones who's on set every day coordinating the green screen and the shootings in the way that needs to be in order to do the actual VFX. So obviously they are a small number of people compared to the 117,000 VFX workforce around the world. Therefore, it's very unlikely that this unionization alone is going to have immediate impact on Marvel, but it is undoubtedly just a drop in the ocean. Or as IATSC's VFX organizer says, this is a historic first step for the VFX workers coming together with a collective voice demanding respect for the work we do. It's no secret that Marvel focusing too much on quantity over quality is the reason why recent MCU projects feels and looks kinda mid. Even the new CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, seems to agree. But despite whatever he say, this unionization will definitely force Marvel to slow down and concentrate more on quality instead, just like how everything should be. At the end of the day, making movies should be fun for everyone involved, especially franchise films. We all care about Marvel and the amazing universe they have built. Despite this moment having a minor financial impact on the short term, it will surely be a great positive for the Marvel's future.
A little over the top, don't you think?
I thought it was spot on.